What does internet org mean to you? How do you define it? What do you understand about it? And what questions do you have?
See, I think there's been a huge net neutrality debate around it, and yes, it might break some of the concept of, it might break the concept of net neutrality. But I honestly think, even though I support net neutrality, India is a country which needs an Airtel Zero and an internet.org. It's as simple as that, because
especially in certain
let's face
sections.
it, we do not have internet in those places. And those people, the first question that is asked in those towns is, how much is it going to cost me? So if I can go and tell them that you can at least open these 10 sites, 10 websites that are going to be free for you, at least that gets them onto the internet. It's how we all started using PlayStation stores and Netflix and things like that. You know, you have to pay. We were also thinking, am I going to pay? When we started paying, we realized, oh, look, Netflix is much better than any other. So let me just pay for this because this is fine. I use Rdio for music streaming and I'm happy with it. You know, I pay for it, and many people ask me, why do you pay for it when you can torrent it? The fact is, you know, I am getting it legally, legitimately, and I am helping a lot of people doing that. Yes, nobody thinks like that, but the point is that when I got onto Rdio is when I realized, oh look, I can now, you know, remove all that music I have from my phone. I can carry it, I can just stream it whenever I need, and I would much rather pay for this thing, you know. So when you give somebody that for free, he uses it and he realizes, okay, this is coming out to be useful. He starts getting news from Facebook and he starts reading the headlines and he realizes, oh, if I click on this, I will have to pay for internet. But I do want to read this news. Let me pay it. I'll save the money by not buying XYZ things or whatever. And it's not that expensive. It's not like it's really expensive and it's going to break your bank. So yeah, I really think India needs things like this. The main problem is that the government is ill-equipped to handle net neutrality. That is the main problem, not the fact that net neutrality is broken right now, because it's not broken that badly.
It's just how much we've let net neutrality go bad, because right now what's happened is people know that internet.org was involved in the net neutrality debacle, and everyone posted saying Facebook is against net neutrality in India with its internet.org platform.
But
so they know that, they just read the headline. Now suddenly one headline comes saying internet.org code spotted on Facebook DPs and you might just be one of the supporters. So they just putting one and one together and they're like, okay, so Facebook is forcing us.
One and one is 11.
Yeah, something of that sort.
But they don't exactly know what internet.org is itself.
That is the problem. I mean, even when I would need to look up on details to know what exactly it has on offer. Because for me, it's a good idea to put internet into the hands of tier 2 and tier 3 city residents. It's not bad for me. So,
and we have written, at Digit, we have written extensively about net neutrality and how it breaks it. My problem with Airtel Zero was not that Airtel wanted to do that. If Flipkart can pay, Flipkart can pay for it. You know,
but then what happens
if
to
Snapdeal
the smaller guy who can't pay for it?
If a smaller guy can't, it's a problem, yes. But the point is, it's the government's job to ensure that it doesn't get out of hand, to regulate it. It's the government's job to say that, okay, listen, you can charge this amount which is reasonable for everybody. But you cannot charge this amount which is reasonable only for the big guys, which is what the government is there for. The government is the watchdog here, not the people, nobody. So that is where the problem is. So yes, we need, I mean, the net neutrality debate, one of the main reasons everybody said, oh, I support no net neutrality is because Barack Obama had ruled for net neutrality before that. Because, well, let's face it, we ape that culture in many ways. But why? You know, Barack Obama did that after all this has grown in US. There are people using Netflix in US. Netflix does not show millions of subscribers that are in India. It's not even in India. So, before you say that I'm not going to support Airtel Zero because I support net neutrality, think about what this thing can do. If it does help in a certain way, you can at least start it, and I don't know, 5 years down the line, maybe make sure that it doesn't get out of hand.
Sure. You want to add something, right?
So, Getting internet into the hands of rural people requires infrastructure. What internet.org will do with infrastructure, we have no idea. But what net neutrality essentially says is people who have the ability to connect should connect, but there is a basic infrastructure that needs to be put in place. Nobody's spoken anything about the kind of infrastructure that will be there. What we were talking about earlier, you and I, now he spotted me looking it up, is something called Project Loon by Google. Now we all know, not being sarcastic or sadistic in any way, but Google is the next Skynet. Right? The way Google works, the way everybody has something or the other. You Google your name, you're going to find something or the other on the 5th page that's actually you.
You sometimes find it on the first page.
That's because I'm an actor.
What actor?
We're famous, we find ourselves on the first page.
He appeared for 2 seconds on James Bond. I had 6
If I Google myself, I find my ex-colleague cool.
Okay then.
Yeah, did you replace him here?
But
I do it on
Okay, so
never mind.
Project Loon is essentially a research and development project being developed by Google X with a mission of providing internet access to rural and remote areas. The project uses high altitude balloons placed in the stratosphere at an altitude of about 32 kilometers to create an aerial wireless network up to 3G like speeds. So let's say if I'm a hiker in Leh Ladakh, or I'm in some remote village of India where not even telephone lines have reached, and we have an array of Project Loon balloons in that area giving almost 3G like speeds.
That's a very good deal.
Do you, and with the kind of a company that Google is, and with Sundar Pichai, we all know the Indian God is going to lead to, Skynet's destruction. Okay.
Of course.
No. But with like, an Indian there who's seen who understands, who can empathize with the situation where, and even if he comes and visits for 10 days a remote area and does even a R&D project of Project Loon in some of the most remote villages in India, why would you need internet.org and net neutrality to take care of it when with tying up with the Indian government, you just put these balloons up there to give us internet access? So why is the world going gaga over something that's not even taken off and not going gaga over something they should, because this seems to be a more viable project?
But exactly, like when you mentioned Project Loon, to me it was something I hadn't heard of. And I'd kind of heard of something about balloons from Google providing access, but I thought it was in the States.
Since this is all about Facebook, Facebook also has a similar project called Aquila, the solar powered drone, which does the exact same thing, just not by a balloon, through a drone.
Exactly, but it's anyway the ability to get infrastructure to a place where if you went the remote way, you would not be able to get it.
Right.
I mean, if you have seen this movie Manji the Mountain Man, which he's seen it, I've seen it, I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I'm watching it.
It's the same thing. It's about India, and the kind of culture that we've come from is to sit on our asses, talk about what we want to talk about, and as long as money's coming into our house and we're getting the services that we want, we don't give a shit about the world. But there's this one man who lost his wife just because she was trying to take a shortcut by climbing a mountain to get to him to give him food, falls down and dies, and he says, to hell with this mountain, I'm going to break through it and get a road. So quite literally, unless that one man from the movie like Lagan stands up and says, mere ko mere gaon mein internet chahiye, nobody's going to give a shit about that person. I'm sorry, the government is going to faff its ass off to get the right people to do whatever they want to do. And in the past 15 years, name one government that has talked 100 things they would do and even achieved 30 of them to an extent where it is sustainable for the next 50 years. Hell, your roads have potholes. I wouldn't mind roads having potholes every year if it was generating labor to people who can't afford to eat food ki iske paas koi naukri to ho. But it's not that. It's money going into the pockets of the wrong people. So I'm sorry, but why should I give a about any of this? You know what I'm saying? It's a very personal thing to say, is that the only thing I care about is getting better broadband speeds in my house because I'm from that upper middle class family that wants a 10 Mbps line at home, and I honestly don't care about the world.
But see, there you go. See, you want that service at a reasonable price, and you're willing to pay that reasonable price.
Absolutely.
I mean, see, so my thoughts like on something like internet.org, I have certain fears. One, the first and foremost is, it has nothing to do with the nonsense people talk about. My fear is simple. You're putting together an infrastructure for people who have access to internet who've never had it before. How you're going about it is slightly a mystery to me, but what you're going to do with it is a bigger mystery. Because I see all the trappings of a surveillance state being put down. Basically, you're going to make you're going to put broadband available to people who are going to use about the 10th of its capacity. What are you using the rest for? Those are questions I want answered. But beyond that too, I'm just trying to get to the bottom of like, what I really need answered. And I asked Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook because he posted about this today. Because of the huge backlash there's been, he said, well, I'm going to talk about it. In his accent, obviously. My question was, if you can make internet accessible to these 38 sites, which is what he calls the basic sites, how is it more expensive to make all of the internet available? Essentially, I think you're blocking the internet, not making it accessible. You're making 38 sites accessible. If I go to wikileaks.org, why is it more expensive than going to bbc.com?
I know where you're getting. Look at it this way. So when Microsoft started with Windows and took over the desktop space, everybody said now Microsoft is blocking everybody else. When Apple became big with its iPhones and everything else, everybody said Apple is blocking everybody else. Same happened with Google and Android, even though Android is open source. The same thing is happening with Facebook. Facebook literally dominates the internet right now. It has a near monopoly over social network. And everybody is saying it's trying to block everybody else. The point is, that is where the governments come in and say that I am not going to let you block anybody else. Is it not? You're talking about a country here which is supposed to be mobile first, which is supposed to, the predictions say that by 2020 we'll spend more on electronics imports than we will on oil. So you're talking about a country like that and you're saying that I will, what if Facebook blocks this? Make sure it doesn't. There are ways to make sure that it doesn't. Yes, the surveillance part, I can understand that you're afraid of that, but again, you're again talking about people who use password as their password. So yeah, you shouldn't talk about surveillance until you can't even choose a random password to make your account secure. Talk about surveillance when you've taken your own steps. You've made sure that if you have 12 different accounts, which all of us have, irrespective of how tech savvy we are, all of us have 12 different accounts, none of us have 12 different passwords.
We have the one password app.
Yeah, I think I have 2 or 3 and I keep
yeah,
forgetting.
so we are
password.
essentially asking people to just make everything for us and we will, we will sit here and outrage on stuff. That's not the way to do it, and that includes journalists. That includes so-called big-time reviewers, journalists, everybody who are saying that, oh, this is bad, without understanding.
Right.
I think that is how everything goes wrong virally.
Yeah.
Just see the headline and then just say this is bad.
So viral
You
culture.
need to find out about it.
I mean, see, at the end of the
just like to be absolutely sure about this, Facebook cannot take away your right to free internet just because you changed your DP. And that's just absurd. We all know that that will not happen.
Absolutely. I mean, the saddest thing out of all of it, I think, really is the fact that people don't bother to find it. It speaks
That's the
back to
worst
me about tech, about everything about the nature of human beings, that we don't bother to ask more before we get angry and come to a conclusion that's completely wrong. But I guess we'll leave it here for now. We're going to keep updating on this story because I'm sure it's going to keep developing. So we'll catch you soon. Thanks so much.
SpongeBob SquarePants.
And we're done. Where's Hindi people's?